In the early months of 1983, the world lost one of its most cherished voices. Karen Carpenter, the angelic singer who defined a generation with her warm contralto, was gone. Yet, just months after her passing, an album appeared, a final collection of her recordings, tenderly curated by her brother Richard. This album was titled Voice of the Heart. It was not simply a record. It was Karen's last embrace, her swan song, and her courageous farewell.
Why do stars fall down?
To understand Voice of the Heart, one must first understand Karen Carpenter. Born in New Haven, Connecticut in 1950, Karen never set out to become one of the most unforgettable voices of her time. At first, she was a drummer, content to sit behind the kit while her brother Richard led the music. But when Karen sang, everything changed. Her voice wasn't loud or forceful, but it had a rare intimacy. Listeners felt as though she was singing only to them, whispering comfort into their hearts. By the early 1970s, the Carpenters had become international stars. Songs like Close to You, We've Only Just Begun, and Rainy Days and Mondays made them household names. Behind the applause and platinum records, Karen was facing battles few could see. She struggled with self-image and an illness that was scarcely understood at the time. While the public adored her voice, privately she was enduring relentless pressure. By the late 1970s, the Carpenters' momentum began to slow. Richard entered rehabilitation for an addiction to prescription drugs, while Karen attempted to branch out with a solo project. The sessions with producer Phil Ramone were bold and modern, but the album was shelved by A&M Records, leaving Karen heartbroken. Between 1979 and 1982, Karen recorded various tracks, some meant for Carpenter's albums, others simply experiments in the studio. Her voice during this time was maturing. It carried both the innocence of her earlier years and the depth of someone who had lived through personal struggle. When Karen passed away in February 1983, Richard faced the painful task of listening to those recordings. He spent months sifting through tapes, carefully choosing songs that best represented her artistry. Out of this process, Voice of the Heart was born. The album opens with Now, one of the final songs Karen ever recorded. Her voice is soft yet piercing, filled with emotion that almost feels like a goodbye. Then came Ordinary Fool, a track that perfectly captured Karen's vulnerability. Her delivery was intimate, almost confessional, as if she were opening her heart to the listener. Other songs, like Make Believe It's Your First Time and At the End of a Song, seemed to speak directly to the tragedy of her untimely passing. Though written long before, they felt prophetic, an artist leaving behind echoes of her soul. For Richard, compiling Voice of the Heart was both an act of grief and devotion. He arranged the tracks with sensitivity, surrounding Karen's vocals with gentle instrumentation that enhanced her natural warmth. He didn't want the album to be a sad memorial. Instead, he wanted it to be a celebration of Karen's voice, a final showcase of her gift. It was Richard's way of keeping his sister alive, not only in memory, but in music. Released in October 1983, Voice of the Heart was both anticipated and bittersweet. For fans, it was a chance to hear Karen one last time. For critics, it was a haunting reminder of what had been lost. The album reached audiences worldwide, selling strongly and becoming a cherished part of the Carpenters' discography. Many described the experience of listening as deeply emotional, like receiving a letter from Karen after her passing. What makes Voice of the Heart extraordinary is not only the music, but the courage it represents. Karen sang these songs during some of her most difficult years, when her body was weakening but her artistry remained unbroken. Each note carried defiance, a refusal to let pain silence her voice. That courage, unspoken yet undeniable, makes the album more than just a posthumous release. It makes it a document of resilience. Decades later, Voice of the Heart continues to move listeners. For older fans, It is a time capsule, reminding them of the days when Karen's voice filled the radio. For younger generations, it is a discovery of a voice so unique it feels timeless. Karen Carpenter's legacy lives not only in her hits, but in this final collection that revealed her soul. Voice of the Heart is proof that while her life ended too soon, her artistry remains eternal. Voice of the Heart was not simply an album, it was a farewell, a love letter, a courageous swan song from Karen Carpenter, whose voice, gentle, haunting, and pure, continues to echo in the hearts of millions.